Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Tuesday, July 26, 2022. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is National Coffee Milkshake Day, and my co-host, he hates coffee milkshakes, as do I. He is the He-Man with a slingshot. He is the Khaleesi of Haldeman County. He is Dakota Christensen. How you doing there, Dakota?
I'm doing just fantastic, David. What an intro.
Well, you deserve. Now, I'm serious. When it comes to, a coffee milkshake, it's the idea of 1 + 1 = 3, but sometimes it goes south, even if you like the first two ingredients. I mean, I love coffee. I love milkshakes. Coffee should not be combined with a milkshake. It's just like I love music. I love movies, but I hate musicals. I just hate them, right? So there's a whole list of things out there, I think, Dakota, that on their own are fantastic, but when you combine them, you just ruin both of them. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I think you make some good points there. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about a lot of those things. Like, there are some things I can think of where it's like, yeah, you throw a bunch of stuff together. It's better when you combine it. I think you might have something there, though. When you take something great in its simplest form and you start overcomplicating it, you just make it worse. I think you're onto something there, David.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't know anything about cooking or engineering, but I like the phrase, keep it simple. The best engineering, I think, subscribes to less is more. So let's not over-engineer our milkshakes. In any event, Dakota, why don't you tell the folks at this point what the ostensible policy reason is for this show?
Well, absolutely. This is the Rebel News Daily live stream. We tell you all the cutting-edge news of the day, and of course, we give you our thoughts and reactions on all of that. And so, we jump right in. You can interact with us. You can send us, I believe it's Rumble rants and Super U tips. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't like us, has us demonetized. So if you're on YouTube, I'd highly recommend hopping over onto Rumble or Odyssey so you can actually interact with us, send us your messages, we'll respond to you, and we go through sort of the cutting headlines of today, David.
The good news is, Dakota, is I don't think we have anything that is YouTube unfriendly because, I think it's safe to say we have a love-hate relationship with YouTube. It's kind of like Highway 407. I love Highway 407 for getting me from point A to point B at actual highway speeds as opposed to bumper-to-bumper horror, which you get on the 401. What I hate about 407 is the bill that comes in the mail. They take a picture of your license plate. And, to our American friends out there, you have nothing to complain about when it comes to tolling, because I've gone on the Ohio Turnpike and I couldn't believe how cheap it was. But getting back to YouTube, we love the reach, don't we, Dakota? We have like over 1.5 million subscribers. We hate the censorship. And when it's topics like talking about a contrarian opinion to the COVID-19 narrative, that will get you a hit. Talking about electoral fraud, that's 2020 electoral fraud. Can't talk about that. You can talk about 2016 electoral fraud. In fact, I think they encourage you to talk about that, how Trump stole the election from Hillary Clinton. But yeah, it's very much a double standard. And I always find it shocking, Dakota, that YouTube being in the land of the First Amendment, for them to subscribe to this censor platform, it's incredible. And I think I've said this over and over on this show. When you go back some 15 years ago, when you saw the likes of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter emerge, it was come one, come all. This is going to be, a biosphere of free speech. We love you. We're going to have diverse ideas. Oh, and we're going to get free content, by the way. What a business plan, right? Getting all the content for zero. And then once these platforms, Dakota, achieved critical mass, They decided who is welcome and who is unwelcome. I mean, it was like just, we really got hoodwinked. And the fallacy, of course, of their free speech narrative is that most of these people are on the left and they don't believe in classical liberalism anymore. They don't believe in freedom of expression, of speech, etc. And they're censorious. It's so sad to see what's happened to the left, both here in Canada and the U.S.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? Just on your 407 point, slight tangent. I went on the 407 highway one time, David. One time. I went one exit and I got a $15 bill in the mail. So I know what you're on about.
One exit?
Yeah, I think it might have been two, but even still, it was something ridiculous like that. But,
wow. And you didn't.
So
you
that's
probably didn't
the
have a
407
transponder.
No, I did not.
No.
That's the struggle.
Yeah, you'll be nailed. You see, folks, don't do what Dakota did unless you really have to get there on time. In any event, enough about this. What do we have? Well, that was a fantastic tweet, I would say. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Oh God, do I miss him? Oh, do I miss him so much? Well,
those golden days.
He endorsed a particular candidate last night for the CPC leadership. Why don't we run the video and see who Mr. Harper likes?
Friends, fellow Conservatives, greetings. I haven't talked to you like this in a while, and much has transpired. Our party, once again, has a leadership race underway. In this particular race, there's been a lot of speculation about whom I support or do not support and why. So it may be useful for my fellow party members to hear my views straight from me. It's a strong field, but one candidate has garnered disproportionate attention. Pierre Poilievre was a strong minister in my government. In the past several years, he's been our party's most vocal and effective critic of the Trudeau Liberals. He's been talking about the issues, especially the economic issues, that matter. Slow growth, debt, inflation, lack of job and housing opportunities, and the need to fix the institutions that are failing Canadian families. He's proposing answers rooted in sound conservative ideas, but ones adapted for today's realities. That's why he has the strong support of our caucus and our existing membership, and why he is bringing the most new members and a new generation into our party. That's how we win the next federal election. And in my opinion, Pierre has made by far the strongest case that he is the person to do that. I know, of course, that others, including some of my friends, may disagree with me, and I respect their views. But I thought you would like to know what my opinion actually is. Thank you for listening. God bless all of you, and God bless Canada.
Well, Dakota, in my opinion, that is a huge endorsement. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since I find for a number of years now, Harper has been rather like he's stayed in the background, kind of in the shadows. He never really was one to be very talkative with the media, I think you would say, or to put his face out there more than he needs to. And so I think it is a big deal for him to be coming out and putting his face out there on video and giving that endorsement, I think is a big deal. And it's very interesting seeing people's reactions to this. I think because when you look at people on the conservative side, it's funny to see some people say who just never liked Harper. They think he's too far right wing, corrupt. Oh, those Harper days. And then you find other people who maybe like the more typical PPC supporter would say, oh, Harper, he's just another globalist sellout, and this just shows that Pierre Poilievre, he's just with the globalists. So it's funny to see how people on different sides are reacting to this. But personally, I think this is nothing but another sort of feather in the cap for Poilievre there. And I think there is a huge swath of the conservative movement that this just kind of helps them feel a little bit better about saying, yeah, you know what, like, hey, I miss the days of Stephen Harper. If only we could go back to that despite his faults. If Poilievre has his endorsement, I feel a little bit better about throwing my support behind Poilievre. So it's interesting to see the lines people can toe there, their reactions to this video.
I think you're right, Dakota, and something you said, those who I guess we would describe as red Tories, well, you have a candidate there, a prominent candidate. That would be Sean Charest. That's who you would support, a 8-year Liberal premier of Quebec. And I think Stephen Harper is speaking to people that want to bring the party more to the right and not be, waffling all over the place. I mean, it was interesting in his words. He said, we're having a leadership convention, quote, once again. And what I took from that is almost, I don't know, a bit of condemnation, a bit of shock, what have you. Because when you think of it, Dakota, from 2019 to 2022, I mean, that's not even one 4-year term of government, 3 leadership conventions for the Conservative Party of Canada. Let's hope we do, have somebody who comes as advertised. I think that was the major fallacy of both Mr. Scheer and Mr. O'Toole. They said one thing before they became leader, and then once they became leader, they were all over the map. And, and by the way, people say, aside from blocking up some streets, what did the trucker convoy do? Well, it got rid of Aaron O'Toole. It's not just because of the trucker convoy. That was the last straw. When you asked Aaron O'Toole, do you support the truckers, yes or no? He could not give you an answer. It was some nonsense about reaching out to the trucking associations, which do not support the truckers. So, people see through that kind of con job. I am hopeful of, there are some good candidates. I like what Roman Baber stands for. I like Leslyn Lewis and her policies, but I think Pierre Poilievre, you get the sense of some momentum there, right? It's he's like a juggernaut right now. He's unstoppable. Mm-hmm. I think this helps him. And, for PPC supporters, Dakota, here's the burning issue for them. And by the way, I do like the PPC, and I love Maxime Bernier. I always have time for him, and he always has time for us, and that's great. But the thing is, they have to come to a realization, I think, whenever the next federal election is, which is you really have almost zero chance of a PPC government coming into place. There's not even one man with one seat in that party. So do you want to squander that vote, or do you want to go with somebody, Pierre Poilievre, who, by the way, Dakota, has been echoing many of the platform planks Maxime Bernier has done? I've covered a few, rallies of Pierre Poilievre, and I can tell you, the single promise that he makes that gives him the loudest and most prolonged standing ovation is defunding the CBC. That's right out of the PPC playbook. My question to you, Dakota, do you think PPC voters, and they got a great percentage of the vote, which at the end of the day means nothing, you've actually got to win the riding. Do you think they're going to say, I'm going to have to maybe hold my nose, go back to the Conservatives and vote for him? Or is it just, it's Mad Max or nobody?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like especially with this last election, I feel like there was a very large swath of the People's Party that went to the PPC only because they were so disillusioned with the Conservative Party. They, like Aaron O'Toole was, we always said, he's just, liberal under a different color. He may be wearing the blue tie under the Conservative Party of Canada. He's, his platform is almost identical to Trudeau. Like he was so unpalatable, I think, to any real conservatives that's why the PPC was able to swallow up so much of the party. And the Conservative Party, I think, was so evidently corrupt in many areas. And so I feel like if Pierre Poilievre, because he's such a front runner right now, if he follows through and if he does win this leadership election, and if he does stay true to what he's campaigned on, like you said, we want someone who remains as advertised. I feel like if he stays true to all of the principles that he has campaigned on and he does what he says he's going to do, I feel like there's a large swath of the PPC who will be pulled back into the Conservative Party. Of course, I think there are those who will remain with the PPC for sure. Maxime Bernier does have a very strong following within a certain section of the population who are very much not going to go back to the Conservatives, I think. But I think there is a large amount who will, because like you're saying, they are very similar on a lot of issues, which is interesting because we see those like Jean Charest now calling Pierre Poilievre an extremist in the party. His extreme views are unacceptable and it's unelectable, whereas diehard members of the People's Party would say that, oh, well, he's just another sellout and, he's another phony politician. We can't trust him. So, I mean, my kind of hard and fast rule is, well, I'm not going to give my trust to any politician, but I'll throw some cautiously optimistic support behind them, however.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dakota. I would support a Pierre Poilievre, but with the caveat, as long as he comes as advertised, it will be heartbreaking. It will be crushing if he does a flip-flop. My spidey senses are saying that he won't, that he means what he says and he says what he means. Jeez, what a concept, right? But
yeah, imagine.
And I'll tell you one thing I would love, if that was a presser that Stephen Harper was giving, and it wasn't. It was just a private video that he put up on Twitter. The question I would love to ask him, and maybe it's just because I've personally invested so much time in it, I'd love to get Mr. Harper's opinion on sneaky Patrick Brown and how he was thrown out of the party and what he thinks of him for breaking the rules and getting caught breaking the rules and then blaming everybody else and saying it's a conspiracy and everyone's out to get him. I would love to see someone as solid as Stephen Harper give his opinion on Patrick Brown. What do you think he thinks of the sneaky one, Dakota?
Well, I think Patrick Brown is such an obvious case of he's just had scandal after scandal, being caught in lie after lie after lie. I think Patrick Brown has demonstrated himself so consistently as someone who will literally do or say anything on any issue in order to help himself get ahead that I honestly don't think that Stephen Harper would think it worth his time commenting on it. To be honest, I think if you had the opportunity to put the question to him, I'm honestly not sure he would actually say anything of substance on the matter. But I don't know. To me, it just seems so obvious that anyone who has followed the legacy of Patrick Brown in the slightest can see that he is the epitome of the what we think of the worst of politicians.
Indeed, and to your words of he'll say and do anything to get elected, what the viewers are watching right now, I don't know if you can see it, Dakota, it's that June 3rd event in which Lincoln Jay and I followed Patrick Brown right to a police station. Here we are being told to come outside because they've just set up a spot check on the parking lot of the police station, a spot check that began and ended with my car and not the first car in, which was sneaky Patrick Brown's SUV there. It's amazing because to the point of what you said, he'll say anything. If only we could get our hands on the call he made to police, or maybe it was a 911 call even. I wonder what he said, to the police or to the 911 dispatcher. Like, was it, I'm fearing for my life. There are these guys following me. There's been a lot of carjackings. This is all, theories. It's impossible to prove. As I understand it, we can't get a copy of a 911 call unless the caller consents to allowing that transcript to be revealed. That's what I've been told by legal. But it's amazing because if he said stuff like that, and I have a feeling he did. I have a feeling he, had some kind of narrative that I'm being followed, which he was. We were following him, absolutely, because we wanted to, once he got out of the vehicle, we wanted to ask him questions. But again, if he said that his life or property were at risk, it was all blown away by the fact that his chauffeur, which we later found out is, guess what, Dakota, a full-time City of Brampton employee. So that makes it 7 that we know of that were working on the Patrick Brown for Conservative Leader campaign. He said to Lincoln Jay, we know who the F you are. And I'm sure that chauffeur might be in a little bit of hot water because it destroys any kind of narrative that Patrick Brown might have said to the authorities that there were some gangbangers, following me. Because if the chauffeur knows who we are, surely Patrick Brown knows who we are. We're no threat to him unless you, count impolite questions as being threatening. So there again, Dakota, I guess that's one anecdote, yet another anecdote, I should say, that backs up what you say, that he'll say or do anything.
Yeah, and on that note of what he said to the police call, because I think it's one of two things there. And like you're saying about the driver saying, we know who you are, destroys the narrative of if you were to call and say, hey, I'm fearing for my safety. There are people following me. I don't know who they are. It's either that or what could be even worse, rather than him lying to the police and saying, oh, there are these people. I don't know who they are. They're following me. They admitted they knew who you were. So the other thing is, hey, I have Rebel News following me in the car. I'm going to call up my buddies at the police station and let them know, hey, they're following me. Can you stop them? I'm going to walk in. It's either he lied to the police or he called up his buddies at the police station and had them help him out in a rather inappropriate way to apprehend media and get him out of a bit of hot water himself.
It is astonishing. Now, of course, he's yesterday's man when it comes to the CPC. He will be running for mayor of Brampton again, just for the sake that he can be mayor of Brampton. It's all about the insatiable quest for power when it comes to Patrick Brown. And it's kind of funny that I feel sorry for Bramptonians, good people, that they have to endure this guy. He's run that city like, well, basically his own private bordello for the last 4 years, his own fiefdom. The last 5 city council meetings, if you can believe it, Dakota, never even happened. The city is kind of operating on autopilot. We know of now 7 for sure employees working on his campaign. The chief administrative officer, a former cop, doesn't return my calls, my emails. I gave him a package last week. No farm, no fault. Even though the media relations people don't return calls or emails. It's astonishing, Dakota. It is, it's like everybody is on, well, I won't say on the take, but everybody, it seems, is answerable to Patrick Brown. It's like, it is like something out of, I don't know, a fiefdom from Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Where he sits
like
on
a
his
mafia kind of shakedown.
Yeah.
You got the man at the top, the head of the family, and his capos, and then you got the foot soldiers, and they're all answering up to the man up top. It's a weird thing to look at how Patrick Brown is running the city of Brampton and how that municipality has kind of turned into its own little, political cabal in its own right.
It is dysfunctional. We'll see what happens in October. But right now, we must break for an ad. Check this one out, folks. Hey, folks, check out the newest arrival to the Rebel News store. Yes, F is for Fidel, and F is for father. I mean, could it be? Yes, half this photo, the colored half, is Justin Trudeau. The black and white half is a young Fidel Castro. Wait now, or is it vice versa? It's so confusing. I'm a huge Forensic Files fan. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a piece of Justin's DNA and a piece of Fidel's DNA and put the rumor to bed once and for all? But in the meantime, we'll just have to walk around wearing this shirt, hinting at a great Canadian conspiracy. Or is it? In any event, if you want to get this shirt, folks, go to the Rebel News store and check this out. Type in our new discount code, that's SUMMER, SUMMER, and if you buy 2 unisex t-shirts, you get an additional one for free. What a deal. Like I said, Justin Trudeau, Fidel Castro, as they used to say on the ABC detergent ads, can you tell the difference? I can't tell the difference. I got to tell you, Dakota, I have a little conspiracy theory about Justin Trudeau's awful Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber haircut. And it's this. Just days after we ran that ad, and by the way, I think it might be our top seller right now this summer. They are flying off the shelves. Lady Menzoid wore hers to the convoy that descended upon the Vaughan Mills shopping mall in Vaughan, Ontario. And wow, was she the belle of the ball at that gathering wearing that T-shirt? People loved it. So I'm sure that generated even more sales. I'm thinking he wants to disassociate himself from the uncanny resemblance of a young Castro and a current vintage Trudeau. And what better way to do that than to give yourself maybe the most horrible haircut in Canadian political history? What is your take, Dakota?
I think that is a grand theory, David. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I do like it though. I very much like it. And that ad is the best ad we've ever shot. I think it's incredible. As soon as the conspiracy, or is it comes on, it kills me every time. It's golden. But honestly, it's worth looking into the, I think it's in Medium, an article it's called "No, Nothing's Been Debunked," and it goes through all the ways that the Trudeau-Castro theory about how Fidel Castro could be his father is very plausible. Of course, there's no proof, there's no evidence of anything, but there's a lot of plausibility.
Well, Margaret loved to travel around. In fact, from time to time, there were even Mounties dispatched to find out where the hell she was on the continent or off the continent, as the case may be. So, but again, unless we can submit that to a DNA test, and I have a feeling there's no way in hell Justin Trudeau would ever agree to that. It's all lose-lose if things go wrong for him. But I'm telling you, folks, the resemblance is uncanny, and we cannot prove it. But wow, if you want to wear it on your T-shirt, on your chest as a question mark as to his real paternal roots, please do so. Here's the other thing, Dakota. Before we move on, I bet if he sees that, much like the F Trudeau flags, which might have almost outnumbered the Canadian flags at the Dutch farmer rally I went to in Vaughan on Saturday with super producer Olivia. I think this gets under his skin. I think he is such a sociopath that he can't believe there are people that dislike him and even use four-letter words to convey their feelings towards him. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah. I think there's no doubt. Just he's such a narcissist that I can't imagine that seeing flags with his name but with a certain expletive beforehand, or seeing that shirts like that. I mean, it has to get under his skin. I mean, the whole convoy, you could just see how stressed and anxious and worried he was throughout that whole time in February when the convoy was in Ottawa, and there were a few moments where he's lashing out a little bit. Yeah, I can only imagine it gets under his skin.
And I see we have some other topics that are pretty much YouTube friendly. Oh, here, this intrigues me. I haven't seen the video, so I'm going to be seeing it for the first time. But it is something that is so much in the news cycle for this calendar year of 2022, Dakota. Essentially, it's Robert Downey Jr. promoting mealworms. Now, before we get to the video, I can tell you this. I just wrote a monologue about, it's a group of almost 100 mayors. They're called the C40. Sounds like an explosive. Of course, John Tory is on that list. And it's all about climate change and all about the war on the farmer, which is coming to Canada, by the way. It's not just something far off in the Netherlands. And I say that because of the Justin Trudeau Liberals' proposed mandates of reducing fertilizer. And I made the quip. I said, it seems that not a week goes by where I don't come across a story involving edible insects. And just to make sure I was on solid ground with that statement, I went to Google News, typed in edible insects, and my goodness, I said not a week goes by. I should have said not a day goes by. Dakota, the last news item was only 10 hours old. I mean, It was, and then there was something from just, I think 4 days ago from the BBC, a big factual feature of why it's a good idea for crickets to replace beef. Unbelievable. But what I can't help but think is that all these people, I mean, Robert Downey, he comes from a place of privilege. He gets, what, $20-30 million a movie just to put on an Ironman costume. The politicians, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, they're all preaching this, but I just wonder if they're having a cricket sandwich as opposed to a Big Mac. So why don't we roll this video, and I want you to weigh in on this. It's almost a fetish by certain people in certain circles to promote insect eating.
It's incredibly comfortable. Now, what is this? This looks like I could make cocoa with this. What is that?
Well, that's an insect-based premium protein. It's made from Molitor, which is mealworm larvae. The company is called Insect. This is Infras. This is for fertilizer. And as you have there, this is a powder derived from the mealworm, and it's a insect protein just been approved by the EU for human consumption.
You're not just getting me to eat dirt, are you?
No, man, I wouldn't play you, bro. We're like one entity now.
If this is protein, it's essentially tasteless. It's just a protein supplement.
Exactly.
I could put this in a smoothie or something.
I'm telling you, yep, and they'll be making all kinds of stuff out of it. And by the way, it is the making of it is severely reducing the amount of emissions it takes. It is a innovation just in we're doing something incorrectly. If we make this switch, it's a huge intervention.
Well, Dakota, to go back to the beginning of the show, I guess I now have an answer in terms of how do you make a coffee milkshake taste even worse? And I guess it's to put up grinded down insects into the beverage. What's your take on what Robert Downey was trying to sell us?
Yeah, I mean, like to your point about it's everywhere now. There's this massive push. It's like this campaign that's being pushed across, and they're roping celebrities into it left and right. I think on the last live stream I was on, we showed a video of Nicole Kidman sitting there eating insects. She was like, "Oh, here's a mealworm," and she'd eat it. Oh, delicious. And there's this push all around. It's like this campaign to try and promote like people to eat bugs and bug supplements and all of that as an alternative protein that's more climate eco-friendly. And it's just like it's the current thing right now. It's what the people are pushing. We always talk about, oh, I support the current thing. What's the woke social agenda that the celebrities are pushing these days? Well, now eating bugs is on the list. And I mean, I personally have got no issue if you want to go and eat the bugs. If that's what the market wants, if the market demands more insect protein and the consumers are there for it, they want to eat the bugs, I say let them have it. But it's creepy and weird when we have this sudden uniform push of all these celebrities saying, come on, guys, eat the bugs. It's good for you and it'll save the planet. Eat less beef and eat bugs instead. It just seems weird. Yeah, like this whole set here is just, it's very weird advertisement for eating bugs. I don't know. I mean, again, like, hey, protein's protein. I'll try these things. If you put bugs in front of me, I'll try them just for the experience. Honestly, I'll try anything you want to give me. But I don't think I'll be making bugs a staple of my diet anytime soon. I don't know. I would have to see a very compelling case as to why I should. Maybe it's because all the rest of the food gets so expensive. I have no choice. Maybe that's what pushes people to accept the bugs. Beef at $50 a pound, or you have a bunch of crickets.
Well, Dakota, call me cynical, but as we were watching that Nicole Kidman video, did you notice there were no close-up shots? I mean, I'm wondering, we get the shot of the mealworms in the silver canister, and then she put something in her mouth. Maybe that was a gummy worm. You know how they like to fake things in Hollywood, right? But I think it should be noted that we've heard estimates of up to 2 billion people on this planet of some 8 billion use insects or consume insects, I should say, as part of their daily diet. And I think, I'm not saying that figure is wrong, but we have to connect the dots. And that is to say, if someone is in Uganda and doesn't have access to, oh, I don't know, a cheeseburger, and the only way to get through the day with something in your belly so you don't starve is an insect, well, then you're going to eat insect, not out of desire, but out of necessity. I think that's what's going on, A. B, I think the reason, yeah, there you go. 2 billion people eat insects, and you can too. No, I don't need to. I still have a little green in my wallet to buy a sandwich, thank you. A sandwich that I want to make sure it's free of bugs, because I remember a world, Dakota, where if you bought something from a restaurant and had bugs in it, bylaw would give the restaurant a ticket, the food inspectors. Now I guess they're encouraging it too for added protein. But the thing is, you got to wonder, what is the ostensible policy reason of the likes of C40 and the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and the celebrities in Hollywood urging us to do this? And I think it is because of the climate change virtue signaling that you see in the Netherlands. The Dutch government has declared war on nitrogen, a much needed element for farming. It's going to put farms out of business. Here in Canada, if the Trudeau proposals go through, you are looking at farmers having lower yields, less profits, higher prices for me and you, and family farms going under. And it's all in the name of climate change. So the elitists, I'm sure, know that if you take away nitrogen, if you take away fertilizer, if you take away manure, it means less food. So we've got to sell in advance this idea that it's actually downright fashionable. Hey, look, the stars in the Hollywood Hills are eating bugs. Why aren't you? I think that might be part of it, Dakota. What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And like I was kind of saying at the end of my last comment there, almost in jest, but it is quite serious note in terms of, like you're saying, all of these emission targets and nitrogen caps that we're seeing being introduced as a top-down government policy in the Netherlands and Canada. Like you're seeing it around the world now. Different governments are now introducing very similar policies to these, which, like you said, is going to mean a decrease in the production of food. When you have less food, less traditional farm food, the price of those foods are going to skyrocket. Yep. So only the rich will be able to afford them. And then while all of these policies are being implemented that are forcing farmers to produce less food, we have these cricket and other insect production facilities popping up, like the one in London, Ontario, that was recently had this big announcement of, the largest cricket farm in the world is now opening here in Ontario. This is great. We're going to start producing more insects en masse. So these bug foods will be economic, they will be affordable for the average person. But all of these traditional foods, especially animal products, are going to be complete luxuries. And again, I've got no problem with those things if that's what the market naturally allows, if that's what consumer decisions drive. But this is a weird top-down government policy that is forcing farmers out of business, forcing them to produce less food, and then encouraging the production of insects, all in the name of global emissions and climate change. It's so weird, and it does not add up.
Well, earlier this month, I did visit that London facility, Dakota. It is enormous. It almost looks like a real-life Borg cube touchdown in London, Ontario, except there's not cyborgs in it. It's, I presume, billions of crickets. And I did speak to the CEO. I found him a very nice man. And he assured me it's none of the crickets being produced are for human consumption. It's for pet food consumption. I don't know if we asked Fluffy and Fido if they're okay with that or not, and so we'll be putting together a report on my visit there. But it's very odd too that part of my upcoming monologue is that this year that we're living in, 2022, was the time for the 1973 science fiction film Soylent Green, and it's kind of uncanny how many things have come true. And I mean, and that's a huge, risk, trying to guess the future in 50 years. But some of it, they were bang on. For example, assisted suicide. You know, in the movie, it's not only legal, it's actually encouraged, and your remaining family members get death benefits when you exit the planet to help with the population issue. And the other thing, of course, is the title of the film, Soylent Green. That is a substitute food replacement. For anyone that hasn't seen Soylent Green, I'm not going to give the spoiler of what they make Soylent Green out of. Let's put it this way. Once you know the secret behind Soylent Green, eating bugs would be like filet mignon, okay? Let me tell you that much. And one last point. As this war on the farm continues, as this promotion of edible insects continues, when I think of elites, one of the big world elites, Dakota, is Bill Gates. And isn't it odd that Bill Gates is now the single largest owner of American farmland, right? So he's not down with the bug menu. It looks like he's got enough farmland to keep him and his buddies well nourished with beef and pork and chicken and what have you. I also understand he is the single largest shareholder of CN Rail, because it's one thing to raise the beef and the pork and whatnot, but you got to get it to market too. So it seems that for such a guy who was considered a futuristic visionary when you go back to the beginning of Microsoft, he's really old school when it comes to his edibles. What say you, my friend?
Well, David, if you think about what I was just saying earlier, if you consider what I was saying to end up coming to pass, where you have these government policies implemented, where it forces so many farms to shut down, it reduces the ability for these small family farms and private farm ownership on a small scale is reduced, and the price of traditional farm-produced food gets jacked up, then Bill Gates is sitting pretty. He's got all this farmland, and if he's got his farming systems in place, and like you said, if he's got rail to transport it, then that's an incredibly profitable business right there of this commodity of farm-fresh food coming out of Bill Gates' farms, going to feed all those who are well enough to actually afford that quality food. It feels like, to me, he's just reading the tea leaves here. Maybe, I don't know if he's helping out any of these policies being pushed, but seems to me like if that's the direction we're headed with these big governments forcing this to happen, then hey, I'd be buying up all the farmland I could too if I was in his position, because it looks like farm-produced food is about to become a lot more valuable.
You know, that's a great point. And then again, to throw back to Soylent Green, which was eerily prescient, given that it was shot in 1973, that is one of the plot points, that only 1% of the world's population, which one thing they did get wrong was the population estimates. Presumably the world is populated with 40 billion people, not the current 8 billion it is right now. But only less than 1% of the super wealthy could actually ever dream of eating a piece of beef. It is in the thousands of dollars. Hey, who knows? Maybe Bill Gates saw that movie recently and said, I think this isn't a piece of science fiction. It's a business plan for our real future.
Exactly.
Oh, man. In any event, we must break for an ad, I understand, because you know what, folks? In addition to your generous donations, selling the merchandise is one of the ways in which we keep the lights on. We don't subscribe to the mainstream media business plan of, let's just take a direct withdrawal out of Canadians' wallets every 2 weeks. So let's roll with an ad.
So I absolutely love having the opportunity to chat with you, to chat with our ever-growing audience. But I'd actually love for you to have that opportunity as well. We actually have advertising opportunities available with rebelnews.com. We don't get handouts from the government. We trust on supporters, viewers, and advertisers like you. So instead of folks listening to me in this spot, they could actually be checking out your company, getting information about your business. For more information or to advertise with us, send an email to ads@rebelnews.com.
Oh, wow. Did Adam look really something like that on that horse? But I can tell you, Dakota. Sheila knows this. I've told this anecdote so many times. In 1985, when I began my journalism career in Alberta, I rode the bucking bull champion of the province for the previous year, Oscar, at the Smoky Lake Rodeo. The ride lasted 2.5 seconds. My recovery lasted, I think, 2.5 months. I was taken to hospital immediately with a hyperextended elbow and bruised ribs and whatnot, but I did survive. So, Adam Seuss, you get on a bull before you take any kind of Calgary Stampede bragging points. But, I think part of the message of why it's good to advertise with us, Dakota, is that Rebel viewers are incredibly loyal. They buy our merchandise like crazy. They love us. When you go to an event, they are so appreciative. They ask for selfies. I mean, I don't think Rosemary Barton has ever been asked for a selfie by anyone, but they love what it is we're selling. And I guess what I'm trying to get to, it's almost like I've heard when it comes to NASCAR, that, when the drivers in their cars, they're covered in ads and logos and whatnot. And evidently, it is the best marketing buy you can do, because NASCAR fans vote with their wallets. If your driver is wearing a Tide logo, guess what? The next day when they're shopping, they're going to buy a box of Tide as opposed to another box of detergent because, Tide is supporting your favorite driver. I think that's the connection here, that you align your brand to Rebel News. I think you're going to win. I think there's a great chance your sales are going to go up. What do you think?
Yeah, well, no, I think you're right, and I think there are a lot of people who do follow us who like to know that they are supporting companies that share certain more traditional values of freedom and conservatism. And I feel like like you're saying, there are a lot of very loyal viewers that we have who want to support people like that, but also don't know quite where to find them. So it's always a great opportunity, I think, to advertise with media companies that sort of wear their hearts on their sleeve, so to speak, in terms of their values and their viewpoints, and don't try and hide that under the rug at all. We're very clear, we're very open, we're very transparent about what we think and what we what we subscribe to ourselves philosophically. And so I think it's always a good idea and a good plan to sort of align with those who do share those values.
No, I think you're right. What Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer taught us is wishy-washy is a recipe for disaster. Even going back to the late 90s when you had Paul Martin running for Prime Minister, and he earned the nickname Mr. Dithers. Now, once you get the nickname Mr. Dithers, it's over, Johnny, okay? It is over. And I think the last straw for him is he was doing a photo op, and he was putting a wreath, it was Christmas time, on his door, and a reporter simply asked, I think it was just like a joking question, it wasn't a gotcha question, and she asked, Mr. Martin, is that a Christmas wreath or a holiday wreath? And Martin looked like Bambi caught in the high beams of a Hummer on the 401, okay, Dakota? He was actually terrified, and his answer was, it's a $50 wreath. Right? He wouldn't commit either to traditionalism or wokeism, and went up the middle, and we all know what happened to Paul Martin's career, although I will say this, I would have Paul Martin in a heartbeat over Justin Trudeau. Paul Martin did do great work as a finance minister. Justin Trudeau and his cronies think, well, the budget will balance itself, and let's just print money and let's send Canada into a stagflation environment. Incredible. And we should go back, because we did tease it at the beginning of the show. Jean Charest. Yeah, speaking of liberals, Jean Charest says vaccine mandates keep public sector workers safe. And he said this in a campaign mail-out. That gets my spidey senses tingling, Dakota, because I truly believe it's only a matter of time, i.e. the fall, when flu season comes in, when we'll have the de rigueur Premier Ford announcement. Well, you know what, folks, if it was up to me, I wouldn't close down businesses, and I wouldn't mandate masks, and I wouldn't demand vaccine apartheid. And when you see Charest, talking about vaccine mandates and public sector workers, I think that is kind of, if he did become Prime Minister, Dakota, I think we know where he weighs when it comes to vax policies, and it ain't a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in that article we were flashing there from True North, it was interesting when someone from his campaign was asked about that, about him saying, so, Jean Charest, he supports vaccine mandates. He said, oh, well, no. At the this other event here, he said he was asked about his thoughts on vaccine mandates, and his response there was simply that, well, I don't think anyone thinks vaccine mandates would be effective anyway, so who would possibly implement those? But he made no hard and fast condemnation or statement. He just sort of, like we were talking about, went up the middle. Well, these days, who really thinks vaccine mandates would be an effective policy? But that totally leaves him open to in the future saying, oh, well, actually, we now believe them to be a very effective policy and vaccine mandates all around. It just, you just absolutely lacks principle.
Yeah. Well, then again, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, Dakota, Jean Charest has a snowball's chance in hell of becoming leader of the Conservative Party and therefore getting a chance at becoming Prime Minister. I really think we are aboard the Pierre Poilievre steamroller here. And so really, you may as well ask, I don't know, Scott Atkinson what he thinks of vaccine mandates. I'm not trying to be cruel to Scott, but there's a time in which you got to say it's over and just quietly exit stage right. And speaking of over, we've only got 10 minutes left. Dakota, I believe we might have some chats that we do. Okay. And is that me, Olivia, you want me to read? Okay. Dakota, I think it's on your end.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I got this right here. So I'll go for it. Adam Ottawa says the Ottawa LRT is down again this week. They say it's because of lightning striking the electrical line. Cue the climate alarmists. Relying on 100% electricity is just not working, apparently. Oh, yeah.
Adam Ottawa, thank you for that dollar. Brilliant comment. Anything that, what the climate alarmists don't understand or pretend not to understand, Dakota, is weather and environment are two different things. We've only kept accurate weather records for the last 3 centuries. Guess what, folks? That is a blink of an eyelash in terms of geological time. The planet is billions of years old. And when you say that there was a record temperature set in London, or there's a BC wildfire, or an electrical strike took down the Ottawa transit line, that is zero evidence of climate change, but the Greta Thunberg acolytes, Dakota, they will nevertheless run with it.
No doubt.
Okay.
Now, again from Adam Ottawa. Do you want to see real hate in action? Read some of the comments made by the left on the CBC News article about Harper's tweet. Why do those on the left think they can be hateful themselves?
Well, it's almost an indoctrination, Dakota, I think, because we go, when you go to right of center demonstrations versus left of center demonstrations, which one has the violence. Because I find that members on the left, they can't articulate what their points are. And they've been brought up for a couple of decades now, an entire generation or more, with that phrase, punch a Nazi. Now, what is the definition of a Nazi? Is it someone on world conquest and engineering a genocide? No, the new definition is somebody that disagrees with you, be it climate change or the U.S. election of 2020. And what's the result? Not to debate, not to engage with words, but to throw a punch, to break the law, to commit physical assault, to commit vandalism, to burn down places. That is what the left is all about. And again, it's I harken back to this, incredible lack of ability to simply articulate what it is they stand for, because they probably don't even know what they stand for.
Yeah, and there's just this overemphasis, like you're saying. And the definition of a Nazi these days is anyone you don't like or anyone who disagrees with you. And it's just sad to see these people who genuinely do believe that certain people who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum from them are their actual enemy, who is out to destroy their lives, make their lives hell, wants to harm and oppress them. And they genuinely believe that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, misplaced hate out there. And it is actually very sad to see.
It's pathetic.
Adam Ottawa is on a roll today.
Hat trick.
Yeah. CBC is reporting on alleged desecration of the unknown soldier tomb in Ottawa, but they won't show us what the desecration entailed. How can we judge for ourselves if we can't see the damage? Yeah, that's interesting. I was actually reading that earlier this morning. The desecration was they draped a flag over it. Now, I don't think that's appropriate. It was a U.S. Canada, one of those hybrid flags, and they draped over the flag. They draped it over the monument. Now, again, I don't think what they were doing was appropriate. I don't think that's something you should be doing on the tomb of the unknown soldier. But I would hardly call it desecration per se, because that sort of paints the image that they were, graffitiing it or something like that, like they were, actually vandalizing it, where they draped some fabric over it, which, again, it's disrespectful and inappropriate, I would say. But yeah, like Adam Ottawa was saying there, seems a little, bit of hyperbole there to saying they desecrated here's the video here. They draped a flag.
Yeah, I don't
condone this.
I don't think this meets the benchmark, Dakota, of desecration. Now, had they spray painted the tomb, had they taken a mallet and smashed pieces off, that's another kettle of fish. But I would imagine if that's a U.S. and Canadian flag that they've draped over the tomb, I think these are people, I'm just guessing now, because I don't know this story in depth, who are supportive of the veterans and not anti-veteran, because they would probably drape, the flag of Antifa over the tomb if that were the case. So, Adam Ottawa raises a good point. I am getting sick and tired, Dakota, because we're all adults here that are consuming news, that when you read mainstream media accounts of controversial issues, how details are specifically left out of the story. As an example, maybe you'll have a hockey game where the story is one player said something offensive to another, and they're calling for a suspension and you have fines and what have you. Can we have the quote that he allegedly said? I mean, no matter what it is, whether it's a racial slur, whether it's something about his mother, I think we can handle it. I don't think we'll need grief counseling, but I see it happening more and more, Dakota.
Yeah, I actually like that article we had flash up there. We're saying, Anand, this minister, this liberal politician said this about, this, quote, desecration of the tomb of the unknown soldier. I feel like that's way too common in media these days, the legacy media especially, is that they don't just report on what happened. They report on it from the lens of this is the comment that this politician or this person in power made on it. So it's always through the lens, through the perspective of this politician, who is, of course, trying to win political points through every comment or statement they make. So we always have that political lens being laid across these news pieces, and it's so rare to actually just get a straight news item on this happened at this place at this time, this is why these people are outraged about it, this is what these people have to say, rather than headline, this politician commented on this happening, and that's the lens through which you view it. I find that just happens way too often.
No, that's a good point. And if you are the CBC and their legacy media ilk, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So if the politician making the comment is a Justin Trudeau liberal cutting checks for you to make sure your media organization stays alive, because if you had to, compete in a capitalist society in which you're not subsidized by tax dollars, you'd fail. Well, you really don't want to, be too much of a muckraker, Dakota, because, like I said, it's Papa Trudeau that's giving you those biscuits to stay alive. Do we have another super chat? Yes, we do.
Exactly. Yeah, January 777 says, too much sewage under the bridge with CPC. We need complete change other than libs/CPC. Define insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Too many red Tories inside CPC.
Well, that is true, the red Tories inside the CPC. But the other issue, though, is who is the head of the fish. And we had two weaklings in Scheer and O'Toole. We have a street fighter in Pierre Poilievre. He's been magnificent as a minister, I think. So I think that's what counts most. And he'll steer that party. And you know what? If Pierre Poilievre is so toxic as some people say, well, maybe these red Tories will just leave on their own accord. We had sneaky Patrick Brown saying before he was booted out of the party, if he wins, I'm not a part of the CPC. Who says that? Can you believe how entitled and selfish this guy is, that this party should really be called Me, Myself, and I, because if that's not who's leading it, I have nothing to do with it. What a creep.
Yeah, well, it's interesting how he said Patrick Brown could see himself working with any other leader but Pierre Poilievre. I think it's particularly because, of course, there was so much animosity between them, but he just knew that Poilievre wouldn't tolerate any of his scandal-plagued BS, quite frankly, in the party. So I think he just knew he had no hopes of any success in a Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre, and so he felt that, of course, making that statement is very appropriate because, of course, I couldn't stand to let that extremist lead the party. I wouldn't lead. But, of course, he just knew that if Poilievre won, he himself had no chances of getting anywhere in the party. And,
as a sidebar to this story, Dakota, I want to get your opinion on, it was in the news cycle last week, but it stuck in my head for whatever reason, and it was reports of Justin Trudeau actually contemplating a fall election. And the only reason I could see that making sense in his warped mind is he's believing the media Kool-Aid of Pierre Poilievre being an extremist. And he is actually such a narcissist, as you described him aptly earlier, that he thinks with Poilievre at the helm, now is the time to strike. I personally feel that the best before date has come and gone with this government. I also think that the NDP is no longer a credible party. To denounce the Trudeaus every day, the Trudeau Liberals rather, every day in the media, and then vote always to back them up, that makes that party a joke, quite frankly. And I think if Trudeau has drunk that Kool-Aid, he is in for a shock. Do you think there's any possibility that we could be seeing a fall election?
Honestly, I truly hope so, because it would be really something. Because these past two elections, we have not had a real Conservative leader leading the Conservative Party of Canada. So if we can get someone who is a real Conservative to lead the Conservative Party in another election soon, I'm sure that would spell the end of Trudeau.
I hope you're right as well. And for another reason, it could be the ultimate revenge on Jagmeet Singh. Don't forget the reason I think he's agreed to this extension till 2025. Well, you do the math. He was first elected 2019. 2025 is exactly 6 years. That means he gets the full government pension, kicks in whether he wins or loses. And the possibility for him being ousted, which was the whole idea of this coalition, he'd flip his lid, I would say. So we'll see what happens in the weeks ahead. I hope you're right. Please, Justin, do it. Just do it, as Nike says. Do we have another super chat there? Yes, we do.
Yeah. Frasbo, recently I read that Pierre Poilievre and Harper are members of the WEF. If this is true, it should be spread far and wide. Please check it out. Yeah, so that's been the common criticism since day one, that Pierre Poilievre, he's WEF, he's World Economic Forum, and Harper as well. And I think Pierre Poilievre has adequately addressed this more than enough times of, asking him point blank. There's no more you can do beyond asking him point blank, are you WEF? Do you support WEF? And he's, denounced them on multiple occasions, and he's gone as far as stating that if he's elected prime minister, he would ban any member of his cabinet or any, I think he said any sitting MPs but at the very least, any members of his cabinet from participating in the World Economic Forum at all. Yeah, ban ministers and other top officials from involvement. So, I mean, it doesn't get more clear than that. And if he backpedals on that, that's a pretty extreme flip-flop. But, I mean, it seems clear enough. And my thoughts on Stephen Harper being World Economic Forum, I think you can certainly see videos of Stephen Harper participating with World Economic Forum. He was definitely involved. In my mind, I imagine he may have just simply been naive to the true, intentions or identity of the World Economic Forum. The idea of global cooperation, especially back when Stephen Harper was prime minister, it seems like, oh yeah, this coalition of, leaders getting together to promote, multilateralism and global cooperation. I'm not sure Harper was really tuned in during his time as prime minister to what the World Economic Forum would become. That's just my sort of speculation personally, but hey, I don't know. I couldn't really tell you for sure.
No, I kind of agree with you, Dakota. I mean, I have a book back in my library at home. It's got the photograph of the Ford Pinto on it. And the name of the book is Looked Good on Paper. So sometimes you get all vested into something, or you're all in on something that looks good on paper, and then you find out that, in reality, as was the case with the original Ford Pinto, he didn't want to get into a fender bender with that vehicle, and you make another decision. Well, Stephen Harper is out of politics, but you showed Pierre Poilievre making that statement, and again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. As long as Pierre Poilievre comes as advertised, Dakota, I really like what I see.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I feel like your choice ultimately comes down to the one who's saying he is going to do this good stuff, and maybe he backpedals on it and completely flip-flops, and that'll be terrible. Or do you elect someone who is not saying any of this and is guaranteed to not go through with it? So, you can roll the dice with someone like Pierre Poilievre, or you can just go for certain death by, WEF policies. So
indeed,
that's the way I see it.
And
Sojourner, $1. The only way I would vote for a CPC leader is if they publicly denounce the UN 2030 agenda that Mulroney signed and the party has held to ever since. To me, that's when the CPC died.
Well, you know what? That's a good point. I guess next time we bump into Pierre Poilievre, we should ask him that question. Will you denounce that UN 2030 agenda? It's amazing. Everything is 2030 is now the new doomsday, isn't it, Dakota?
Yeah.
The previous one was 2012. It was the Mayans predicting 500 years ago that the world was going to end. They couldn't see their own world ending in the here and now with Spanish conquistadors sailing into their territory, but I digress. But and that is, I must say, it's a funny thing about Pierre Poilievre. He was on a Jordan Peterson podcast, and he was talking about his, how he admired the mainstream media. And yet we cannot get him to sit down for a scheduled interview. I would love that. Ezra would love that. Anyone on our staff would love that. But by the same token, he doesn't run away from us. Like, you bumped into him in a parking lot, I think. But he answered a couple of your questions. It was very brief.
Yeah.
But he didn't run away. He didn't sick security on you. So it's, this is a little perturbing to me, Dakota, because if you do have admiration for the mainstream media, and if you look at who...
Sorry, to correct you, David, you're saying mainstream media. I believe you mean...
Independent media. Thank God. I would hate that to exist on public record. It would be the end of my reputation. Yeah. But if that is the case, come on, sit down, have an interview. He's a great debater. It's not going to be a gotcha kind of thing. I mean, we're going to give him hard questions. But I would like to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Any more chats here?
Yes.
Oh, yes. AMT60, I've heard that Pierre was part of the WEF earlier, but his pick scrubbed from WEF site. He talks about freedom, and I like his message, but I hope he's being honest. Roman's great, but not the same charisma. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and but to Roman's credit, last week he did give an interview to our beloved colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid. Mm-hmm. So if Roman can do it, Pierre certainly can.
It's true. Yeah, it's a great interview. I highly recommend checking it out. It's got some good ideas, good stuff, and yeah, giving him credit. He will sit down with us for a good talk. And I do like everything Rowan Baber's saying. I think he's on the money on most of his policy points.
Yep, I agree.
Adam Ottawa back again. If bugs are the answer, why aren't they pushing them onto clients of food banks? Put their words to the test.
Wow. Isn't that Adam Ottawa, I got to tell you, you're hitting it out of the ballpark today. Or would that be elitist, just getting our own domestic poor, much like the third world nations poor, eat bugs? That sounds like a caper. I'm just worried about maybe receiving a violent reaction coming over to homeless people and offering them bugs. But that is an amazing point. I wonder if we put that to the likes of John Tory and whoever runs the food bank system in Toronto, what their answer would be to that, Dakota.
Yeah, I will say, don't you worry. Soon enough, those at food banks will be eating the bugs because we will all be eating the bugs. The only thing we'll be able to donate to the food banks will be our own bug food products. So it'll happen soon enough, not to worry.
Wow. Well, we'll keep our eye on that one.
Frasbo donates $1. The trouble with being old is I remember just a few years ago, restaurants would be closed if you found a bug in your soup.
Well, Frasbo, that's a great statement. We're going to have to rewrite that classical joke. Waiter, there's a fly in my soup. And the response from the waiter is, "Oh, I didn't notice, sir. That's going to be an extra $1 for the added protein."
Yeah, exactly. Ooh. Paulato Newman says that distant popping sound you hear is all the heads on Wellington Street exploding after hearing Stephen Harper's endorsement of Pierre Poilievre.
I know, which to me is, a badge of honor. If you're having those on the left having a mental meltdown, couldn't be happier.
Absolutely. Twinks gives us $2. Remember, Bill Gates is money behind WF and UN policies on depopulation, buying farmland also to turn it into UN agenda natural land while millions starve. They want to get rid of 7 billion people according to the agenda.
7 billion?
Yeah.
We've only got about 8 billion. That's, I
Yep,
think well, as Kathleen Wynne would say, the ex-premier of Ontario, I think that's a stretch goal.
Yeah, but no doubt, Bill Gates is tied right in bed with all these nice big globalist orgs, no doubt. January 777 gives us $1 and says, David, I agree with your head of the fish comment. In my business, a bean counter in charge has always crashed and burned. The CBC needs a ground-up manager like Rowan Baber. Still no more lib/CPC.
Well, you know what, January 777, you raise a good point. I don't think Roman Baber is going to become the leader of the Conservative Party, but who's to say he's not going to run as an MP in a riding and maybe even be part of a cabinet? And I think we're better off for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I do like you're saying, we have some great candidates in the leadership, and I would love to see, if so I do believe Pierre is going to get elected as leader. He's the front runner with such a margin. But I'd love to see the likes of Leslyn Lewis and Roman Baber actually be in a cabinet. I think that would be such a great team actually to provide some real leadership and direction for our country. I don't know. I'd be excited about seeing that.
Yeah, I think the only two that wouldn't sign on willingly, well, one is gone, sneaky Patrick Brown, and the other is Jean Charest. No loss as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is it.
Is that all?
Okay, then. Well, Dakota, thank you so much for substituting for the She-Devil. She is covering an important court matter in Alberta right now, I understand. And I want to thank the team behind the board, Olivia, Efren, and Danny. And, of course, I want to thank our audience for tuning in, especially those who made those generous donations. It's how we keep things humming here. And tomorrow there will be 2 other Rebel News reporters doing the live stream. So until Sheila and I reunite on Thursday, as always, folks, stay sane.
For the 4th dose, same thing. If you're over age 50, if you have underlying medical conditions, immune compromised, then certainly consider that 4th dose. The other thing that we need to consider is that in early fall, there's a real chance of a bivalent vaccine that we begin our fall campaign with that is going